purpose of the podcast is communication and relationship. When we were going through this, like we noticed that dropped. Our ability to communicate dropped. Everything that we've been preaching and sharing and prioritizing, it dropped.
Honey, we need to chat.
And we are
back.
We're back.
Welcome back to season 2 of Honey, We Need to Chat. Far out, Brussels sprout. It's been a minute. It's been a minute. So for those that are tuning in for the first time, this is the first episode back of season 2 of Honey, We Need to Chat podcast. What have we been doing?
We had a much longer break than anticipated. We initially decided to take a break. I think it was October or maybe end of September last year, because we were suddenly thrust into the area of moving house, selling house, buying house.
When we say thrust into, we decided to.
Well,
we weren't thrusted into it.
Put on us.
Well, it was like we understood. We came to the realization that it was an option to do something about our house situation, which we've been struggling with for a little bit. And then it's like, oh, we can do this. Let's do it.
And also the time frame of it wasn't going to be long standing. So I'm glad we got it done. It was hectic. When we took the break, we decided it just wasn't going to work for us to try and record and edit and release episodes while we were doing everything. Did think it was going to be more like a month.
Yeah.
It definitely was not a month, as you guys
can tell.
Yeah. So we're in February now, and that happened in September last year. So it's been half a year almost.
Wow, that's crazy. But thank you for everyone that's been reaching out and contacting us still during this time. Again, the best thing about doing this podcast is actually... the best thing about this podcast is doing this with Amy and the input that it has into our relationship. The second best thing is you guys, just that communication with you guys and that seeing how our relationship, the things that we're working through, conversations that we're having is impacting your relationship. That's really encouraging because, we're just ordinary people. We're everyday people discussing everyday struggles, and a big heart behind this podcast is help others to realize that they can do it too. You guys can do it. And so you sharing that with us has been a real highlight, especially through this busyness and craziness and not podcasting.
Yeah. Lifing. Real life. And thank you so much for your patience during this time. As we said, it went for longer than we expected, and we didn't keep you guys as up to date as we kind of hoped that we would throughout the process. So thank you for your patience. For those of you that have returned with us in season 2, we are so thankful that you're here. We also recognize it's going to take a bit of regrowing and getting momentum back again. So absolutely up to that task. Also, we would love to encourage you guys to help us with that too. If you like this podcast, if this has been a blessing to you, please continue to share it, promote it. Engage with
share, subscribe, guys. I know
over and over.
You hear that all the time, right? On different podcasts and YouTube channels. It does help us out a lot, just to get that engagement out there, to get that awareness out there. Like, share, subscribe goes a big ways. Before you keep going, just click that really quickly. Whatever you're listening to on right now, subscribe, share it to one person. That would be a huge help to us. Yeah,
and I think you can get into this rhythm where your algorithm or your phone setup prompts you to listen to the thing that you're engaging with or watch the whatever platform you're engaging with, and not realize that you haven't actually subscribed, liked, followed, whatever you want to call it. But those things, as we've said, are what help us grow. And so without them, even though you might be getting benefit from hearing us because you're here every week, other people won't see us if we can't grow. So we would love a little push from you guys, and that's more than we should be asking for because of being gone for 5 months. But we're going to be doing it too from our end, and we're really excited to hit the ground running. And I'm not going to lie, we're not fully prepared. We've even up until today, literally setting up the room today. It's not fully set up, as you can see if you're looking at the videos. We do have space now because we've moved into a much larger house than we were in previously. So it will be amazing. But it has been a little bit of a leap of faith to be like, okay, we're going to release in February because neither of us felt ready. And I think we could have put it off, but we're just
and it's little things too. Like Amy's holding her microphone because we can't find our other microphone stand. That's just the beauty of moving. You can never find anything.
And we will find it after we've bought a new one. I'm fairly confident that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the other very exciting thing, and hopefully will be playing out in how the podcast is presented to you guys, although invisibly to you, is our kids are all at school or daycare
Hallelujah.
today. First time since having our complete family. All the kids are out of the house. Thursdays, Fridays, we've got baby in daycare, and the 3 older ones are all in school. So, oh my gosh, hopefully that frees us up so much more.
Which is an exciting time, like an exciting season that we're entering into as well. Yeah. So even having today, you know, Amy and I are like, wow, there's no kids in the house. And we both work from home. So, you know, school holidays and working from home is, oh my goodness, like that is a kick to the face 5 times.
It was long.
Yeah, it was hard. So, you know, it's been really, really nice to have this time, but it's also getting used to this time as well. How do we use it productively? What does this look like now? So entering into that season. And one of the big things we wanted to prioritize was this podcast. So we're really excited to start back up again. We're really excited for this season. We're not mixing it up crazily, but something that is big and exciting for this season is, you know, during this break that we've had, the interviews that we've been having. So we have been actually still recording a number of episodes with some interviews over this break to be able to bring that. You know, we've got some, so in this episode we'll be sharing about that break, what that looked like for us, the difficulties we had in that season through our communication, through our relationship. But even in that, we still made that priority of getting guests to speak into our situation as well, which was really impactful for us and exciting for the podcast. Yeah, a lot more interviews happening this season compared to last season. And some, oh man, they are solid. They are really solid.
Good. And there's more to come. So yeah, watch this space. They definitely add an extra pizzazz to the episodes.
Pizzazz.
In fact, they add everything to the episodes. So yeah, they won't just be us this season. So anyway, here we are. We're going to dive into season 2 of Honey, We Need to Chat. So starting us off strong and on topic that we've already kind of dived into, we're going to do a Would You Rather.
Yeah.
Old school Honey, We Need to Chat.
Cool. I've got to find that because that's my task. Would you rather, and this is very relevant. This is very, very relevant. Would you rather have to move houses every year for the rest of your life, or live in one house forever but never be able to change anything about it, not even the furniture?
This is the thing, right? We did move house every year for the first 7 years of our lives together, and it was a lot.
Yeah.
And we love being more stable. If we had to move into this house and we couldn't have changed anything, we would literally be dead by now. So
yeah. Share that.
So
we'll share that after.
Okay.
But no, absolutely. If we had to move into this house when we first got it, no, I would rather move every year. Yeah, every year. But if we moved into this house as it is now,
then I would struggle not to change anything. Yeah. But I do think it would be better than moving every year.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is still a fixer-up house, right? Yeah. We still got some work to do on this place. But if I had to pick, I would still pick to stay here and not move anything, especially in light of where we've just been through. It was hard. And I would just stay with as it is.
Blair's really set on never moving again. And I think, we've only been 2 months in this house now. And so it was a lot. But we also have 4 children, very young.
Yeah.
And I said the only reason I would want to move again, or the only way I'd be happy to move again, is if we had a lot of money that we could pay someone to do literally every step. And we didn't have any rush in terms of selling. Selling was the worst. Selling was the worst part of the whole thing. Moving in and of itself is annoying, but selling and then buying and the logistics that went into that was a lot. Huge blessing that we can. Don't get us wrong. Like, the fact that we can do that is huge, and we don't want to complain in face of that.
No.
But it was a lot.
So let's get into this. This is what we wanted to sort of talk about in today's episode, is going through what's life been like for us in the last 2 months. Why did it take us so long to get back into recording again, or releasing episodes again? So we were in this house. It was our first house. We're a family of 6, and look, it was a great first house. It was great. We moved in, first house, love that. We only had 3 kids at the time, and all 3 kids were in the same room. It worked, but we knew it wouldn't be long term. Then comes along number 4. Number 4 provided some difficulty. So at first he was in with us. That stopped working because, I think from our first 3, we had done a lot of sleep training and so forth. And it really helped because we had extra room and they would have their own room and they wouldn't wake anyone up and it would give you that space to sleep train. Yeah, they slept
the whole night.
All of them slept really well. The other 3 slept really well. But our youngest wasn't sleeping that great. And so we're like, cool, let's get him out of our room and get him in with the other kids. So we had 4 kids in the same room. A toddler was one of them, and that didn't work well.
They literally told us they don't want him in there anymore, which is not normal for them. Normally they'd be like, let him in here. And then they were like, I don't want him in here. He just would keep them awake. He definitely has struggled with sleep more than the rest of them. Yeah. And because we both work from home, we needed that office space.
So we had an office. We had a 3-bedroom house. The 3rd bedroom was our office/studio where we recorded our episodes. And we were holding on for as long as we could because we just needed that space. And then we look, this is not working. The kids are miserable. We're miserable. We're getting less sleep now because all of the kids are awake, not just our toddler. So he moved into our office, which is the other bedroom. And so our office went into our walk-in wardrobe, which was tiny. And it was just very claustrophobic and it just was not great. And, we both have a history of mental health struggles. And so knowing things like natural light and so forth have been important to us because of our previous struggles. So it was hard. It was really, really hard. We weren't on an income that would allow us to do anything about it for a number of years. Some good things happened within our careers and our work that then meant we got a pay bump. Went to our broker, said, hey, this is our situation. Help us, please. And he came back with really good news, saying we could borrow actually quite a bit more than we thought we would be able to. And so we're like, all right, this needs to be done for our sanity, for the sake of our family, for the sake of our relationship. We're like, we need to do something about this, hence starting renovations.
Yeah. So that's the other thing too, is we had projects that we had been working on for the 3 years we were living in the previous house that had not been completed.
Yeah.
And the idea that all of a sudden now we need to complete all this stuff within a month because self-inflicted.
We put that time pressure on ourselves.
Pressure on, and that was like, all right, but we just had to get our head down and just work. Literally the whole of September into October was just every night, every day, working, getting the house with help from a lot of family, which has been super amazing because it wouldn't have happened literally without them. So it was just like, all right, we've just got to knuckle down and do this. This opportunity has come up. I've actually documented the whole story because at so many points along the way, including before we found out that we could even buy a house that was larger and would fit us better, there were just so many genuinely miraculous, crazy situations that just shouldn't have worked out the way that they did. And so grateful for that journey, as painful as extremely exhausting as it was. But yeah, it was just a month of let's do this. Let's get it done. The funny thing was too, when we first met with our real estate agent to sell, we were saying to her, we want a 4-bedroom house. We just need an extra bedroom. That's all we need is an extra bedroom just to get some kids a little bit more space. And then I remember saying to her when she came in, because we were looking at what was available and that kind of thing, and we could just squeeze by a 4-bedroom house. And I remember saying an extra living space, this was a luxury in my head, an extra living space would be amazing. And I was like, but I'm not holding my breath. We just need that 4th bedroom. She's like, easy. So we started working towards that. And then we saw this house, and this is what I mean by everything was just so perfectly aligned. Difficult, but perfectly aligned.
It was difficult because we made it difficult. And I want to probably touch on that a little bit later. A lot of the difficulty was our stress and our anxiety of things around it that didn't need to be there. But if we just chilled, it would have been click, click, click into place. That was our experience with this. But we'll come back to that. We were struggling in it
more than we needed to. But yeah, so we, at the same time as just deciding to list and not even being ready to list, we're still 2 to 3 weeks off because we've got to get all these things done on the house. This house popped up and I was like, that's a big house. And you know how you see the floor plan and then you see the photos and everything looks big and then you go walk through the house and it looks smaller in real life. This one looked really big in the photos and it was just outside of our range. And so we were like, oh, I don't know. Also, we're not really ready to put an offer on, but I inquired with her and I got a call the next morning and she's like, just letting you know, he's not quite ready to sell, but he's listing it. There's a few things he needs to get into place, and he's got tenants, so it won't be able to be lived in yet. And I was like, that is so perfect for us because we aren't ready to buy. Like, we haven't sold our place yet. It'd be on conditional of our sale of the house, and we wouldn't be moving in for a while anyway. So we'd need a long settlement. Anyway, she's like, they've got tenants in, but I can squeeze you in tomorrow. So we came in like 2 days after this house was listed, and walking through the house, we were just like, this is huge. Like, it's so much
in comparison
bigger.
to our last place. Like,
in comparison to our last place,
yeah.
But it's so much bigger even than it looked on the photos. And the reason it stood out to us was it had an extra living room. It had a whole rumpus room. It had the 4 bedrooms, a laundry, an office as well. Yep. And this massive master bedroom. So like the amount of space that we would be gaining was just like beyond imaginable for us. The house was rough. It was in rough condition, and
you get that from tenants over time, right?
Exactly.
And you know, just in case
the
previous
tenants are
listen
listening
to this, but we don't know where the mess started, and like it could have been
a long chain of tenants, yeah.
Because I know that one of the things that was really great about this place, it dropped $100,000 over a year because they couldn't sell it. They
tried to sell it the year before, and it was only listed for I think it was 16 days or something like that, and it didn't sell. So then they had just relisted it right when we were ready, which again is another one of those things. It's like, wow, it could have sold the year before. So after we saw it, we said, you know, we're really interested in this place. Didn't think it was going to happen for us. Every step we're like, it's probably not going to work out. But we're like, we'll talk to our broker. The broker's like, look, you can say conditional on the sale of your house and offer them a low price because of the state of the property. It might not work, but you might as well try. So we did. And then a few days later, she's like, he's accepted your offer. Well, I think we like met him a little bit higher than we did, but we got, it was just amazing. Not to get into too much detail about that, and he accepted it condition of our sale of our house, a 90-day settlement, like all these things just like fell into place. And then we're like, all right. And then every step we're like, but we've got to get our house sold by then. So that was a whole stress journey.
We moved out of our old place, and lived with my mum for like a month. Which was hard because, you know, with a toddler, we set up our house for our family, right? We know our family. We know, you know, your baby-proof stuff, you don't put
the things you get tired
out.
Of stopping him from doing, you make it so he can no longer do it.
But then you go and live at someone else's house for a month, and
there's all the whole new things.
You're unsettled. You know, you're not in your place. His sleep was bad.
It's tough, and then also added to it all the stress that we were going through as well. So very gracious of her to open her house to us twice. Actually, we lived with her on 2 different stints, and if that didn't work out, we wouldn't have been able to do what we did. So we did that, and then this amazing person came through at the last minute to buy our house. And
we were like, oh man, we're not going to sell. We've had people walk through. No one wants it. The yard's too small. Like, these are all the different things were coming up. Like,
it is brutal to put your house out there and hear people's feedback. That is brutal.
Yeah, especially when you've done a lot of work. Like, you've just done a lot of renovations to it. Like, that's hard. But yeah, she came through, accepted what we needed.
Everything.
And
she was so speedy too. Everything just went bang, bang, bang that week.
Yep. And it was done.
And we just kept looking at each other like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like, we would drive past this house we're in now every day.
And this location. And we're
the location's amazing. And we're just like, that is our house.
How did this happen?
Wild.
How did we get this place? It was crazy. So as we said, the place was quite rough, and we walked through again. So the tenants have moved out, and the real estate for our new house is like, do you want to have a look? And we're like, yeah, cool, we would love to, because we've been driving past the house every day. We want to go in again. Went in, and it was
bad.
The smell was bad. The smell was in our noses like for hours after we left. Like, it was bad. And again, I'm not, don't know if it was the last tenants or the tenants beforehand. These tenants were only in for a year.
Also, the house had been closed up for a couple of weeks after they moved out too. So it's probably just like.
And anyway, so we're like, we can't move into this house with our kids. Like, we just cannot do it.
It was the carpet. That was the issue. That was the main issue. Was really damaged.
And so we're like, all right, cool. Well, what do we need to do to? We started exploring that. Well, we don't have any money. Yeah. So your mum helped us out to get the money for the carpet, to change the carpet over. And we had our settlement date, and we had to be out of our house. So we were in this in-between period of like, what were we going to do with our furniture?
Even that was wild though, because mum did help us out, which just eased pressure, because it's just a timing thing. All of this whole entire process is a timing thing. It's like this like tower made of cards, and one thing out of place is going to topple the whole thing. And so I was like, I think we'll have the finances, but we are so close to the line and we needed it done before we moved in that I'm just not sure when everything's going to be in place. So Mum very graciously helped us. But what was funny was like a few days later, I randomly got given this big chunk of money that I wasn't expecting to be getting to be paid back for something from a while ago. And I looked back and it was almost exactly the exact amount of money we needed for the deposit to pay for these carpets before we moved in. Like that's if we just waited, that would have just covered that anyway.
Yeah.
Like thankfully it worked out regardless.
And we were able to pay her back straight away.
Exactly.
You know?
It was like just another one of those things. It's like out of the blue, this money came along that just like was literally exactly the amount of money we needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so we started moving stuff, and also I started ripping up the carpets, and it was so, I threw up.
Yeah.
Like I threw up from, I just don't want to go into details too much.
Gross.
It was so bad. I felt horrible for days because I did it in a day.
You did it real quick.
I ripped it all out, but it was rough. It was very rough.
So that's why if we had to live in this house without changing anything, that's why it would have been a no, because we would be unwell, like genuinely would not be well.
Yeah. And then we got in, and now it's been that process of trying to find everything,
Unpack,
figure out what we're going to do, where's the studio going to go, you know, all this sort of stuff. And then it was a matter of getting the kids ready for school. Now, first day
Here we are. This is
in
like
the
the
new
moment
place.
of breath.
Yeah, because that's the other thing too. Like, again, this is sort of just explaining why we've taken so long to get back up and running again, because we just had so many things on our brain. The end of last year as well, I didn't finish work too well. Like I was just exhausted. I put in some really bad habits for myself on, you know, working remotely and work-life balance and so forth. I just didn't do well. And then, you know, all the renovations and everything. So there's a lot of stuff going on. For me personally, and then that would go out into the family, and we just needed that break. And it's like you're on pause until that day, which is today. And so
we do everything.
Now we do everything now. But it's great. Like just loving this time of. I feel like I'm awake again. I feel like because the big things through this period. Okay, so going down to the purpose of the podcast is communication and relationship. When we were going through this, like we noticed. That dropped. Our ability to communicate dropped. Everything that we've been preaching and sharing and prioritizing when we were in this stressful, hard time, it dropped. And it was so easy to drop. And that was quite hard. And so I feel like coming through this now, even knowing this day was coming, was this breath of fresh air of like, it's only a season though. This isn't going to be forever. I know this is the new norm for us. We're out of our norm for, maybe 4 months or whatever it was. And it's been gradually being aware of that, putting little things in place, but trying to get through that. So probably my question for you though, Ames, is from that, how was that time for you in terms of yourself, your mental health, but also, I guess, what were your struggles in our relationship in that time?
It's funny because we have, like we said, we've moved every year until we moved into our previous place here. And so we're used to moving. And I think we didn't talk too constantly about this, but I was anticipating we were going to have difficulties. Like you always know when people go away on holiday or when they go on a camp, like, cause we used to be youth leaders. I always knew the couples were going to have arguments on camp. That always happened every single time. Or you go on a trip or like you move house. These are the things when you're going to have an argument basically. And it's not a bad thing like that. I think I was coming into it being like, yep, we're probably going to argue. And my best friend had just moved house and I'd watched her go through the whole process and talk to her about it. And then literally we started doing it as well. And I was like, yep, we're going to have the exact same things. Like everyone's on edge, everyone's tired, everyone's exhausted. I just found my filter for being gentle or like even just having mental space to like consider other people's, like how to do things gently for other people, my kids, my husband, everybody, was just gone. Like I just it was like I was on edge the whole time. And I was like, I can't even take a second more of mental space to think about how to say what I'm about to say nicer. Like I just need to say what I need to say in terms, not be mean, but just like, this is what we need. Like just very straightforward. And I think that's how you get survival mode. I don't think all of this sounds like it's just going to happen. You can't do anything about it. You can prepare yourselves for these things. And I think one of the biggest things was that going into it, I knew that was going to happen. And so I had a bit of grace, even though it was tough, we had moments where it was really like, oh, we're just at each other for no reason kind of thing, or we're just both frustrated and we don't even really know what the cause of the frustration is. I still had in the back of my mind, that's what happens in times like this. You're all on edge and there's just an extra serving of grace in terms of both of us. Grace for myself being more frustrated than I am, grace for Blair for being more frustrated than he is. It didn't mean that those moments were easier necessarily, but it just meant that they didn't hold the same weight that they normally would. But yeah, that was definitely tough. We had times where like we just, I don't know, we had multiple little arguments along the way that were just like, wow.
That was intense.
Where did that come from? Yeah, it does not even like correlate to the actual issue itself in terms of intensity. Not huge intense, just to be clear, but just like, it was
more
just,
intense.
Yeah,
and I think that was one thing that we were trying to do in this season was figure out like what's going on for us. Like, why am I struggling so much? Like, why am I being so short? I feel like we kind of swapped a little bit. So for majority of our marriage, or relationship, I'm quite a to the point, blunt person, and I just struggle to think about how the other person receives information and more about getting my point across, not in a self-righteous way of like, oh, I need to get my point across, but it's more of like just the way that I process. I'm like, is this what you're trying to say? Is this what it is? Like, just I want to get to it so I can unpack it from there. All that sort of stuff. But it comes across quite blunt, which has been quite hurtful for you in the past. And it's been such an effort over the years to really get into that. Still struggle with it, just a lot more aware of it now, and we've worked on that quite a lot. And I think it was just kind of reverse. Because I knew we were struggling, and I was very much aware of like, I've got to go in overdrive here, really make sure that I communicate clearly, and then you would communicate bluntly, and I was overly sensitive because I was so tired, and I'm like, but I'm putting in this effort, why can't you put in this effort? But it was just that we were so much more easily triggered over stuff. So the issue, we would have an issue on something and we would find that we weren't discussing the issue. We're discussing the way that we discussed the issue.
The tone was the biggest thing.
And then I would get blunt back, it wasn't that Amy was the only blunt person, but it was just that I was overly sensitive. You were unusually straightforward and blunt. And it was just like, what is happening? And we unpacked a lot of that and then kept on coming back to, we're tired. And one big thing that gave us hope through that period is to know that it was a season. I think it's really important is when we do identify seasons that we're in. So if we're struggling as a couple, identifying the season, but it's really important in that season is like, well, when's the end date? It's not that this is the season for the rest of our lives or the rest of our relationship, because then it's not a season anymore.
Yeah, I think it's about identifying it's a season of unusual circumstances. So we've got unusual triggers, unusual environment, things that are going to add to our reaction and our relationship in a way that we don't normally. So we're not in default, we're not in normal. But I think the challenge is to not just be like, because I hear this phrase a lot, like it's a season, early parenthood, it's a season. And so then almost it's like it's followed up by, so these things won't happen. So, your sex life is going to go down the drain, or your time together is going to go down the drain. And I understand it is a season that makes those things more difficult. But the challenge is to be like, this is the season we're in. How can we be intentional in that? And how, like you've said, how can we be intentional to move through that season and come out the other end, whatever the season may be, without coming out separate, basically. You're thinking about young kids, there is a pattern of couples putting their relationships on hold because they have young kids and they just don't have time, and then ending up not being friends by the end. Like they don't have a relationship to come back to when their kids are no longer so dependent on them. So I think it's the same with this. Like we had lots of conversations through this season. We had lots of times where we were like, "Meow," and then all of a sudden having to unpack that. And it was tiring to unpack that because of all the things going on. But it was important that we unpacked that, because if we hadn't, those are the things that would sit there and be like, I would be like, why is he doing this? Why is he doing this? Why is he doing this? Instead of being like, I don't like that he did that, or that I did that. It's not how it normally is. Or we've talked through it and we've explained it, and we're going to move on from that and find intentionality in it. So it is a season, and that's such a good thing to remember, as long as you don't become a victim necessarily to the season, or you don't become like trapped in the season, powerless, because you're not powerless, and we weren't powerless. It just felt like it.
Yeah.
but we had to put things in place to make that work.
I'll start this off, but what's something in reflection that you're happy with through that difficulty, right? So for example, something that you brought out in that season was about how for so long you struggled to actually share. You've been so concerned about how people feel that you struggle to get out what you feel. In that season, you're like, I can't do that right now. I don't have the emotional, mental capacity to think about how you're going to receive something. I need to get this out because otherwise it won't get out. That we know is a huge possibility for unworked through situations and difficulties, right? So I actually found that as hard as it was in that season, as raw as I felt in that season, a very big plus, because I think that we've now been able to take that through to now. It's like, well, all right, cool. That's something that we've identified there, is that this is something that you feel. That wasn't the best way we've handled that in the past, but now we've identified that we can apply it going forward.
Yeah, that's good. I think I like seeing that we can do hard things. So when you're cruising along, like life is never really cruisy necessarily, but when there's not big, huge challenges like this, just felt like a mountain all of a sudden in front of us. I liked seeing that as a team, we can do hard things and we can push through and have discipline. And that was really a blessing to me, because I don't always believe that I can do that. And if we haven't tested that out in a relationship, I wouldn't necessarily know deep down inside we can do hard things and we can stay close in hard times. And I really liked that we were willing to come back to each other and be open with what's going on and reflect and talk about it. And regardless of how those moments were traveled, to come back at the end of it and be like, okay, this is what's happening. And know each other better and know each other more like intimately in that space, which I think is a blessing, even though it's difficult.
Hey guys, welcome back for season 2. It was so great to have you here. We're going to take a little bit of a break in this chat right now. Just share something fun. What's your favorite episode of season 1, Ames?
I think it's the mental load one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Why is that?
I think because it's the biggest like mystery ticket in relationships, and I feel like for us it's been like whoa, and then for other people it's been the same thing. And I think there's so much more to talk about it, and I'm excited to keep tackling that topic in different ways. But yeah, I think that was my favorite. What about you?
For me, it was our interview with Luke and Susie. I think it was our main interview for last season, and I love hearing from other couples on the way that they deal with stuff, the way that they navigate through difficult situations and circumstances. I get so much from that, and so excited to apply those different things to our relationship.
Absolutely.
So anyway, just wanted to highlight that. If you haven't seen those episodes or heard those episodes, go check them out in season 1 and enjoy season 2. Let's get back to the episode.
Thanks.
Cool. So one other thing I want to talk about in this episode is what are some things that we've been working on personally. You know, it's been another thing that we identified through this hard season is like, what do we work on together and what do we need to work on individually? Yeah. So for myself, I actually put a video out on our socials recently talking about something I want to really work on, and this is in light of what you're going to be sharing, is how do I listen to you when you're coming to share something with me without going into fix it mode. I think that's something that a lot of guys struggle with, but we also got some females write in as well of things that identifying that they struggle with it too. And so anyway, this is something that I really want to be intentional on and work through, is identifying that. So what I did, I asked for people to write in on how do they navigate through and help themselves to prevent themselves from working on for going into fix it mode for their partner. So this is some stuff that people wrote in on how to stop going into fix it mode when you're listening to your partner. So first one is easy, is reflective listening. So before responding, they summarize what the other person is feeling, right? So for example, it sounds like you're frustrated. That's something that I've really tried to put in place of like, all right, what is it that you're actually feeling right now? Because a lot of times that you might share something, I'm like, oh, well, it's simple. This is the solution to that, but I'm not understanding what you're actually feeling. Because if you're feeling sad, you don't want to fix something while you're feeling sad. So understanding the emotion behind what you're sharing was quite good. So reflective listening. Next one is ask before offering advice. Yeah. So this was a lot of people wrote in on this one. Do you want me to help fix this, or do you need me to just listen.
Yeah.
So having that phrase in place is something that a lot of people wrote in about. Again, do you want help fixing this or do you want me to listen? And that just gives people like myself that tool or that phrase to be able to know how to respond in this circumstance. And then it gets my brain into, all right, it's listening mode. But then it's active listening. It's not just like, yeah, I'm listening, but don't acknowledge anything. It's a matter of, oh, okay, cool, and interacting with the conversation too. Validate first. So again, this is part of the active listening side of stuff. A response can be, that makes total sense why you feel that way. So I think something that I've had to learn with this active listening, I feel like a big thing that you're trying to do in that scenario is you're trying to understand sometimes, is this worth me feeling this way? Am I stupid for feeling this way? And with that validation, it's like, well, no, it's not stupid. It makes sense that you feel that way. It makes sense that you're struggling with that. So it's helping you unpack that as well.
Yeah. There have been times where I'll talk about something that's really frustrating me or is very fascinating to me, and you'll just be quiet. And then I'm like, okay, well, obviously he's not interested. And then a few minutes later, I'll either ask you and be like, are you not into that stuff or whatever? Or you'll come out with something and you've actually just been internally processing.
Yeah.
And you go into like thinking about it. And so I'm like, he's not interested, but you're just sitting there like, if I was in that, I would say this or this or this.
Yeah. Yeah, and exactly. So I'm either trying to workshop it and I don't want to share it with you, so I start to shut down. It's like, she doesn't want me to fix it right now, but I'm fixing it in my head.
Yeah.
But then I forget to actively listen and input into the conversation.
And let me know that you are invested.
Exactly. Yeah. Or I'm trying to picture myself in that scenario. So I'm just playing it in my head of like, oh, this is what it would be like, So I'm not actually trying to ignore you. Yeah. I'm in the conversation, but I'm not responding in the conversation for you to know that I'm doing that.
There's been some times where like I've told you a story that's just ridiculous. It's just like, I'm so frustrated this person did this thing to someone I love or to me or whatever, or said this thing, and you're just kind of quiet. But then you've been like, you have been getting frustrated inside about the thing and you just haven't like shown me. So I'm sitting there like, he never cares about these stories. And you're just like,
I was like steaming. Yeah. Another good one too, and this is like a contradiction to that one that we just shared, was time delay rule.
Yeah.
So it was like, if your instinct is to fix, take a breath and wait 5 seconds before responding. And I do that, but then I forget to respond. So that's still a good one, is again just stopping ourselves and getting into the mind of, what am I trying to improve on here? What's the result that I want? I want the result to be that you feel that I'm someone safe that you can share with, that I'm not going to go into fix it mode. So taking that breath is going to help me focus on what's the desired outcome. And
I feel like that's a good technique across the board. Like it's a good technique to help not be reactionary as well. If someone's coming to you with a concern or something that you might feel defensive in, it's a good idea to take a breath and just be like, I'm not going to straight away dive into what I think about this thing. I just need to take a second to kind of ground myself and then respond in maybe a little bit more appropriate way. Yeah.
And body language check. If you're leaning in, like you're going to fix it, you're going to try and solve it, physically lean back. So it's actually a physical thing that you can do. So if you get all excited and you lean forward, you're like, all right, this is what we're going to do. Like you get into fix it mode. You're like, oh no, take that breath and then lean back. Yeah. Change your posture, because then again, it just helps. Something practical, lines we get to say, all these things help us with that. So these are the things that I'm trying to apply anyway. It's not what I've got. I don't do them. I want to improve on them. And man, I got a lot of messages as well from females saying, I got to share this to my partner because to remind them. We all do it.
Yeah. So this came up from something I've been working on, this whole fix it thing, which I'll dive into. But I sometimes don't even know what I want from you. Like sometimes I'll share something with you and I'll be like I said, he doesn't care. He's not invested, whatever. And whether you are or not is to be found. But then sometimes you'll be real fix it, like, especially if it's stuff that I need to do for myself, like health or mental health, you have a lot of suggestions for how to do that. And I appreciate that. And then I'll be like, hang on a second, that's too much. But then sometimes I'm like, no, I need him to, he's not giving me any like insight. It's just like flip flop. So sometimes I don't even know. So I guess that question, asking your partner that question, helps them think about what it is that they want out of it as well. Yeah. As long as you're not asking it like, to be so black and white that you're like, it's either this or this, figure it out. What do you want from me? And it's more just like helping both of you be on the same page about how to navigate the conversation. I think then that's a healthy way of going about it. But yeah, this all kind of stemmed from the last, I guess, since we started to move. It sort of started a little bit earlier than that, but I've just had a rough time with my mental health and just processing what's going on there. And I said to you the other day, because you said, I feel like it's getting worse or more intense. And I don't actually think it's gotten worse. I don't think it's something that I'm like worse off than I was before. I think it's actually something that I've just become more and more aware of. And so that feels like it's worse because it's more on the front of my mind. It's coming out more intensely, but actually navigating it, or the actual issue itself, or the actual challenge, whatever you want to call it, is not necessarily worse. I don't think it's grown. I think it's just me being like, yeah, that pattern that I fall into is just really not helpful, and it's such a constant thing. And suddenly I'm like so aware that it always happens, whereas it's been happening my whole life. So I've had a tough time just really feeling low, and I've felt low on and off like my whole life. Like I just said, that low, anxious. I can never really put words to it. It's just like I'm just low. Like everything feels heavy, and I'm stressed and I'm anxious and I'm worried about things, but half the time I don't even know exactly what I'm worried about. I'm just overwhelmed. And with kids, it's just so much it's like on steroids, because you're overwhelmed and then you're having to like be totally like constantly brought back to the moment with these little things. And I've found myself over the last couple of months having them be like, Mom, 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 Mom. And all of a sudden it's like I look over and I'm like, you're here. And I'm like, what? Like, I just can't like put my brain from this big cloud that I'm navigating into this tiny question of, can you open my packet of chips or something like that? Like, it's just that kind of contrast is so jarring and overwhelming, and it just adds to the noise in the background. Holidays has not helped. It's been fun to have them home. Like, I love watching them play, but everybody's been stir crazy and just intense, and there's been a lot of change and everybody's on edge. So it has not helped, but I've definitely been navigating my mental health. And part of the way my brain works is I just like something just ticks over and ticks over and ticks over until I figure it out. And so when I can't figure out what's happening, it just constantly, it's like I'm just spinning my wheels in mud, and it takes up a huge chunk of my consciousness and even my subconsciousness. And so then it can feel very overwhelming or numbing. I've been using that phrase a lot, describing it like numb, almost like I'm just not really connected to the moment. And I've realized that I think I'm navigating something like OCD, like obsessive thoughts. And that was when I kind of came to this, I'm going to say conclusion. It's not a conclusion. I don't have a diagnosis or anything like that. But when I've kind of thought about that as like potentially a framework over what I'm navigating, it's been really freeing because I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense why my brain does it. It makes sense why my brain just ticks over and over and over until I can make sense of something. It's like an obsessive wheel that's just going round and round. So it's been a lot to feel like to figure this stuff out. And I think the biggest thing is recognizing how much my mental health takes from me or has taken from me as I've like grown up. Coming to terms with that has been sad because I don't want to be not present. I don't want to be always on edge. I really don't want to always be worried. Like I'm always worried. And with the house stuff, every time, like we said, every step felt so difficult. And the main reason it felt so difficult was because I was so anxious about it and I was so stressed about it. And really it kind of fixed itself. None of my anxiety ever did anything in that process. None of it. Not a single one of my moments of anxiety fixed that. And hindsight is 2020. Yeah. Amy in the moment wouldn't have known that. But I think that's been my big thing, is just kind of navigating this whole thing going on for me. And then I haven't been able to communicate that well with you. And partially that was because I just felt like every time I came to you with feeling low or feeling whatever, you'd be so quick to be like, well, you should go for walks, or you should whatever. Do you want to talk to someone? Do you want to get like see a counselor? Cold shower, like these things that are actually so helpful and I have been doing, and they have been helpful. Because I wasn't quite clear on what was going on. I didn't feel, I'm going to say safe. I didn't feel unsafe, but I didn't feel safe or welcome to just throw it out there with you casually without it then becoming a thing. Blair is very like, let's do something about that, and intentional with everything. And so I always know if I've ever got an idea, especially if it's something that's like a challenge or like self-discipline related, if I say it to you, then it has to happen. So it's things like every now and then I'll be like, I think I'm going to get off social media. I'm like totally addicted to social media. And I almost never tell Blair when these thoughts come into my head, because the moment that I do, he'll be like, how's it going with being off social media? Or just keep me accountable, which is what you should be doing. But I'll just then I just like, I'm like, no, I'm done. So you're just very good at staying on track with that stuff. So I think that's all part of the reason why I just didn't really express a lot of this until it was kind of more big. And then you're like, I haven't heard this.
Yeah.
And so then we had to process all of that.
Yeah. And which is, again, like these are all things that we go through. And every time we go through something new, it's always strengthening what we have.
Yeah.
And that's, it is hard. It is very hard to hear that, I'm not the first person you go to for stuff because of my reactions. But I also, again, am very practical. So I'm like, cool, what do I need to do now practically to do this? So that's where putting that video out there, reaching out to you guys. And I just really, really did appreciate that, because, again, that's very much my practical mind of, man, I want to fix this. What do you guys do? Help me. Yeah. But also what I loved about that is, as you guys helped me, we were able to help others. And we were able to share that journey too, which was great.
And one thing that was cool that I think is helpful is we had this big discussion, which is where all this came from the other day, when I was like, I think this is what's going on. I'm just feeling very low. And then you were like, I didn't realize. And then I said the fix it thing. But one thing that I was able to say in that was, I think I need you to look into and research what it is to support someone with this, in case this is what I've got. And then, because it's so hard to take what I'm navigating, learn it about myself, and then tell you what you need to do to support me, especially if I'm feeling like guilty or shame in that space. I don't want to be like, now you need to do all these things. And so I think that's not something that I've really said before. Like, I need you to figure out how you need to support me in this. But I also wasn't sitting there like, he better know how to support me. He better be doing this without me telling him. Like, he should just know that this is what I want. I was like, I really need to tell you that I need you to do this, because you were asking me like, how can I support you? And I was like, I think I need you to look into this. ChatGPT has been the main source. It's not the be all and end all, but it's sure helpful. So even that, when you're like in the fix it mode, it's so hard to not fall into those patterns that everybody's into. It's also really hard not to just expect that your partner is going to know what you need. And I actually made a video about this the other day as well. Like, we are so, I don't know if it's everybody, but I find myself so constantly like expecting other people to know what I need or what I'm thinking or feeling about something. And I understand, like, someone commented on it and said, yeah, but when you're 5 years into a relationship, they should just know. And I was like, I don't know. I just don't think that's true. There's like things you should know, as in like, don't yell bad words at your partner. Like that sort of stuff is like basic knowledge. Put the toilet
seat down. After 5 freaking years, put the toilet seat down.
But even that, if you've had 5 years of not putting the toilet seat down and your partner hasn't said, hey, can you put the toilet seat down? Why on earth would you suddenly be like, you know what? I should put the toilet seat down. And if you are like that, awesome. But for your partner to then be like, he never puts the toilet seat down. I just feel like so much we don't question ourselves and be like, have I clearly communicated my need in this space? Or am I getting frustrated or hurt or whatever, feeling neglected in something that I haven't actually sat down and said, I need this from you in this space? And if we want each other to succeed, and if we want our relationship to be the strongest it can be, why would we not take that time? That doesn't mean that they're suddenly going to be everything you need. It doesn't mean that they're a constructive partner in your relationship. There's so many dynamics at play, but just knowing that you've done what you need to do to communicate what you need is really important. Yeah. So these are some lessons we've had in this tough time. We could probably talk about them for 7 episodes.
Yeah, but we won't.
But we won't.
Yeah.
Well, you'll find out.
Awesome. Well, that's pretty much what we have for the end of our first episode back. Man, it was actually really nice. I've missed this. I've really missed connecting with you on this way, because I feel like we debrief a lot in this space too, and unpack a lot of stuff for ourselves as well. So I've missed this. I've loved it. I'm so keen to be, I hiccuped. I'm so keen to be back.
Yeah, same.
Which is great. But last thing, just to wrap up, I just wanted to share what's coming up. So we've got guest speakers. Ames, who are some guest speakers we have, and what topics? Next
week we have such a good episode with someone called Bryce. He's worked on this game that we actually got gifted last year, which is amazing because I think it cost us something like $50 to send it to us from Canada. Anyway, it's an incredible relationship game. And the reason we're chatting to him is the research and thought that's gone into the game and the resource that it is. is super interesting and unique. And the spin that he has in his conversation about relationships and about how to like grow and understand each other better is really fascinating. So I highly recommend. He's a great chat. He's really like easy to get along with. Very funny. And yeah, he's going to be our first guest next week. Watch this space. Super good episode. And we've got so many others. We've got an author and her husband, very powerful speakers talking specifically on the topic of intimacy. We've got people talking about finances, people that were in a difficult stage of their relationship and were willing to let us chat to them in that space, which was super special as well. We've got some awesome guests that are coming up and yeah, I don't want to spoil too much, but watch this space. They're really, really valuable episodes.
Yeah. Other things that are coming up. So we are having more opportunities for you, our listeners, to speak into these episodes as well. So we've opened that up. Again, if you haven't signed up, go to our website at honeyweneedtochat.com. Register there. You can put in your stories there. You can send a recording in and we can actually play your recording live, not live, but on the episode, live on the episode.
And it can be also completely anonymous if you want to. There's completely anonymous ways of putting your story in as well, if that's helpful. Yeah, it's anonymous to us as well.
Yeah, and our chatters have more of a say into what we're doing and topics that we're doing and stuff like that as well, which is really exciting. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We're just going to be looking into, again, communication, the importance of communication in a relationship and how we prioritize that in our relationships to make our relationship stronger.
Yeah, because when communication dies,
bad things happen.
All right, guys, if this episode related to you at all, we want to hear from you. Please comment on the socials. Please message us. We'd love to hear from you guys if this meant anything, if it resonated. Also, if you've heard anything in the episode that you're like, oh, I've got a really good tip for this, or we've navigated this and this is how we've gone through it. We would love to hear from you because, as we saw on your video the other day, it's super impactful when people actually give their insight into it as well. Yeah. So please do contact us. We would love to hear from you guys and not just be an echo chamber here.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good chat.
See ya.
Bye.